And so our last speaker in this session will be talking on the topic Culturalizing Healthcare, the case of Center of Inclusive Care. The presentation explores two key aspects of sustainability and joy. First, they discuss how mental health interventions can help individuals rediscover joy and motivation, enabling them to actively engage in sustainable actions. Through therapeutic approaches, the Center of Inclusive Care clients have gained emotional resilience and a renewed sense of purpose. And second, they examine how integrating local cultural values and traditions into mental health care can promote sustainable, joyful behaviors, fostering community support and harmony with nature. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Faree Ziyan, the head of the Special Education Needs and Senior Holistic Care Officer at Center of Inclusive Care, Pakistan.
Thank you so much. Just checking, am I audible to everyone?
Yes, you are.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Jenna Declaration. Thank you, Dr. Benno and Dr. Martin for the invitation. I am so honored to speak to all of you about culturalizing mental health care. I'll just be sharing my screen. Please give me a moment. Is everyone able to see the full screen? Perfect. Okay, so as I was so nicely introduced, I will be exploring joy, sustainability, and cultural sensitivity in mental health interventions, particularly in the context of Pakistan. So I work for a multidisciplinary therapy center called Center of Inclusive Care, located in Karachi, Pakistan. Our endeavor is to create and work towards a more inclusive society. And our co-founder, who could not be here today, basically believes in a systemic approach to intervention. Our vision is that we hold the systems that hold the child. So that basically means that we work with all the systems around our client in order to ensure the best possible care. Here are some things we offer. We offer therapies. Since we're multidisciplinary, we offer things like psychological assessments, counseling. We offer behavior therapy, speech, occupational, and remedial therapy. We offer trainings and workshops to upskill our professionals because mental health is a very up-and-coming field in Pakistan. We develop projects and initiatives, international and local collaborations to spread awareness on mental health and inclusion. And all of our team is held to the highest international standards to be safe practitioners, ethically, personally, and just throughout all the services that they give. So essentially, why does culturalized care matter in this context? In mental health, one size does not fit all. And in Pakistan, the urgency of culturalized care cannot be overstated. Our communities often express distress through various ways, physical symptoms, spiritual idioms, or relational tensions. They may not have the clinical language to express how they're feeling. So when care is offered in frameworks imported without any sort of adaptation, meaning Western frameworks, perhaps that may not apply to a South Asian population like Pakistan, it can miss the mark entirely. Culturalized care means meeting people where they are, with language, values, and metaphors that make sense in their world. It's about creating space for mental health conversations that feel safe, dignified, and relevant, whether that's in a clinic or at home or through even a video call. So at Center of Inclusive Care, CIC for short, we found that when people feel culturally understood, they are more open, more engaged, more likely to continue their healing journey. And this journey and this healing is what can lead to joy and the ability to carry out sustainable actions. So I'm just going to go through a brief literature review based on all the studies that have taken place in Pakistan that support the theory that culturalized care is able to produce joy and sustainable action. So in the first study mentioned here, Shoaib and Khan, they demonstrate the promise of mindfulness-based interventions in improving emotional regulation and life purpose. Their study explored mindfulness as a non-pharmacological approach for managing stress, anxiety, and depressive symptoms in Pakistani populations. Our next study, Culturally Adapted CBT by Naeem, shows how culturally adapted CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, effectively reduces depressive symptoms. This randomized controlled trial tested a pre-tailored CPT model in Urdu, which is our language. So basically adapting all the Western methods into our own language, highlighting its acceptability and clinical effectiveness, especially in low resource settings where there might not be enough education to understand English. Then our next study, Alvi et al., emphasized that adapting global psychological tools to local contexts enhance resilience and long-term behavioral change. Their work focused on translating and piloting psychological assessment and intervention tools in line with social cultural norms in Pakistan. Bostanis et al. Highlight how community-focused mental health approaches improve social cohesion and foster collective well-being in the context of Pakistan. They use a train-the-trainer model to raise mental health awareness among youth and community leaders. And finally, Kamran et al. Presented that integrating family systems into therapy aligns with Pakistan's collectivist culture. Their study examined how involving families in therapeutic process leads to more sustainable outcomes for individuals with emotional and behavioral challenges. So basically, all of these studies suggest that culturally grounded interventions that are adapted to become relevant to the population we're serving, they don't only support emotional well-being better, but they also enable individuals and communities to engage more in sustained and meaningful action in their own communities. So, of course, that's the literature review, which means that's a review of the studies that have taken place. But have we seen those outcomes ourselves in our practice? So I'd like to share a few highlights from our own practice at CIC, where we've seen the real-world impact of culturally attuned mental health support. I'd like to highlight 3 client journeys where individual, family, and community transformation are evident through culturalized mental health care. What's consistent across these stories is that we didn't impose change as mental health practitioners. We invited change through culturally respectful relationships and language. And what were the outcomes? Sustainable outcomes in leadership, education, and disability empowerment, which I will show you now through our first case study. So we're going to look at client AC. Sadly, there are no pictures because I have to maintain client confidentiality, but we've got consent to speak about all our clients' cases. So I'll be mentioning them by their initials. So we had a client called AC who came in who was battling depression, trauma, and relationship struggles because she was a foreigner who was working in Pakistan. So a very mixed bag of culture and dysphoria that she was facing. So we worked with different therapeutic models such as somatic experiencing, inner child work, and attachment-based psychotherapy. Based on all our interventions, she was able to rediscover joy in herself and her relationship. This support led her to be empowered enough to move forward with her relationship, get married. She eventually relocated to another country. She was empowered to then take a leadership role in school because she had worked through a lot of her self-esteem issues and was able to upskill herself. Now, through that leadership role, she was able to mentor others, and she even founded a mental health program for teachers and students. On the side, she dove in to launch a business with her partner as well, whom she was in a relationship with. So essentially, her journey was from being a client of mental health to a community leader, not only in her space, but the space where she relocated. So her reach was taken forward as well. And what's the sustainability impact for this case study? Community leadership, advocacy, and mental health program development, not just in one location, but across 2 countries. The second case study is of FS and T, FS being the parent and T being the child, about family-led empowerment. So the mother FS came to our center for therapy for her son T, who was without the diagnosis at that time. However, she was able to enroll him in expressive arts therapy, speech and language therapy, and herself took parental guidance. Like I mentioned earlier, we provide support systems for everyone around the client, not just the client themselves. So we were able to guide and counsel the parent through parental guidance sessions too. This led to her interest as a parent, being active in the parental support groups. She would start attending trainings, community sessions. She would be out in the field with us just through her own interest. She eventually ended up founding a homeschool for neurodiverse children. After uh, serving the landscape of education in Pakistan, she was able to get empowered to start her own venture that was able to cater to needs of children with disabilities better. Um, she also developed on-site therapy support for parents in similar situations. So she worked with us in collaboration in order to produce her own support groups. First, she was a member, and now she was leading her own. And she has become a prominent special education needs community advocate in Pakistan. Also, in the meanwhile, we were able to do a psychological assessment on her child and were able to diagnose him with autism spectrum disorder. This diagnosis was not a hindrance in his life, it was more of an empowerment. So he was able to know his strengths and he was able to gain independence and he was able to move on and have closure from his therapies, graduate from the homeschool system that he was in, and he is now a functioning and contributing member in society. So the sustainability impacts is for therapy in this context was grassroots education, parent-driven advocacy, and community building in the special education needs community, something that we find is very lacking in Pakistan due to stigma and things like that. Our last case study is about N, who began home-based therapy at age 10 due to osteogenesis imperfecta, which is brittle bone disease, a disease where even slight movements can break your bones. So you can imagine that this client was very hesitant to be out there in the world, bedridden, because any such movements could cause dire consequences and complications. So from at home, our center was able to empower her by visiting her for therapy, for movement and expressive arts therapy, for psychotherapy, because also sometimes your physical state and being in such a condition affects you mentally, so you need that mental support. Remedial therapy, which is special education intervention, because she obviously was not able to go to school, and parental guidance for the parents who were struggling with how to navigate having a child in this way. So the family was deeply involved. Again, they joined our support groups. We were able to support them, the parents first, so that they were also able to empower their child at home. And eventually, the child progressed to on-site therapy and attending school, where we were able to support them with the correct access arrangements, overcoming the fear of mobility aids. She was finally able to use a wheelchair to start getting around. So for someone who was bedridden and now moving on to actively and independently using a wheelchair, this obviously empowered her so much. In the meanwhile, her mother became a certified counselor. She's actually a mental health practitioner in Pakistan as well, which is amazing because now she's able to carry her impact forward to other clients, not just within her family system. Recently, this client chose surgery independently as well. So she was empowered enough to make her own medical decisions. When, if you recall, she was first too nervous to even get out of bed. She has also started her own business to empower other patients with brittle bone disease. So her sustainability impact or the sustainability impact through the therapeutic approaches are disability inclusion, intergenerational empowerment, and family-led resilience. And you can see that this not just affected the family in a positive way in all of our case studies, but the community at large. Through therapy, they were able to get empowered to start making those huge movements and changes in their communities. Right. So what enabled these kind of outcomes? Because it obviously sounds amazing that, therapy was able to work so well for all of them. First, we invested in trust. Our teams took time to build relational depth, not just with their clients, but family and community members. Of course, with the consent of the clients as well. We focused on all the systems around the client, not just the client themselves. Secondly, we stayed open to the local knowledge. We didn't position ourselves as simply mental health experts that are here to fix a problem. We positioned ourselves as listeners, as partners, especially when it comes to working with parents and schools. The collaborative atmosphere was there. Remember, Pakistan is a collectivist society, so we like to work together. We like to engage with each other. Therefore, there's more value in relationship building in order to have these therapeutic outcomes than what may be in other places. Each care plan was adapted and revised based on what felt meaningful and doable in the client's real life context. So therefore, we showed flexibility as well. We did not just rigidly follow whatever guidelines and programs that we've learned as mental health practitioners. We were able to adapt them to the culture, to the family atmosphere, to the location, to the social class level of all our clients as well. It wasn't always fast, but it was sustainable. And most importantly, our internal culture at CIC is grounded in reflection, humility, and care for ourselves, for our teams, and our communities as well. So, as you can see on screen, the main way we achieved such amazing outcomes in our clients was basically adapting our intervention models to the culture. We made sure to holistically include families, schools, and medical professionals in the mental health care process, making sure to work systemically. Not only with psychosocial modalities, but also educational and medical. And with our support, our clients were able to break out of their shells, experience joy, and contribute to the community to create their own changes in society. So as we look ahead, we believe the future of mental health care in Pakistan and beyond must be locally rooted and emotionally intelligent. Culture isn't just a backdrop. It shapes how people experience themselves, their struggles, and their healing. And at our center, we've seen when care reflects the actual reality that people are facing, it unlocks trust, it unlocks their voice, and then it leads to joy. So that joy may come from being heard for the first time, or for reconnecting with one's sense of purpose, or realizing that care isn't just clinical, it's human. Mental health advocacy, it must be systemic, including families and communities wherever possible in order to make a larger and collective impact. So reimagining care through culture and joy isn't a luxury, it's a necessity if we want our mental health interventions to be truly inclusive and transformative. And due to this, we will find that every empowered client can plant the seeds for sustainable collective action and healing. So thank you so much for walking with me through the story of care, complexity, and hope. Culturalizing mental health care, it's not about the perfect solutions, as I mentioned. It's about the courage to listen differently. It's about the humility to adapt and the commitment to stay close to the people that we serve. Here are the references that I've basically used to inform my literature review. And one of our case studies was also published in a journal, so I've mentioned that as well. I'd also like this opportunity to thank the co-founder of Center for Inclusive Care, Aisha Jamal, for providing the information for the case studies and success stories at our center. And again, thank you so much to the Jana Declaration for this opportunity to present at this esteemed conference.
Thank you, Fariha. It is such an interesting sharing from you. And it's so good to hear. It's inspiring that it's from healing to leadership. Imagine previously we consider us incapable because of such some form of illness within him and became a leader. So that means there are no reasons for hopelessness. It makes us hopeful because of the Center of Inclusive Care. Thank you so much. And so is there any question from the audience?
If anyone has a question, they can drop it in the chat. I'd be happy to keep replying. So that's fine. I will be online till the end of the conference as well.
Okay, there's a question from Emmanuel.
Okay. In reimagining care through culture and joy, how do you intend to curtail the primitive culture that failed to accept modern medication? So being a mental health center, I would say we do a lot of psychoeducation for the clients that come in. So our clients that come in often have those doubts. Maybe they feel the medical system has failed them, or they feel that they feel perhaps ingenuity or lack of trust with the medical profession. More so, actually, interestingly, they feel that way about counseling and mental health as well, because remember, mental health is quite a stigmatized topic in Pakistan too. So a lot of people come in because they're forced to because of family members and things like that. So I would say psychoeducation, just those that conversation, speaking at their level, using their language, their understanding, metaphors that relate to them and their life. Is something that brings that comfort and then that trust in them to sort of take the leap of faith and see whether these interventions work. So we don't actually provide medical interventions because we're a mental health center that does psychotherapy and counseling. But when it comes to referring to people like psychiatrists who may need medication, so that's where we provide the psychoeducation. We also reach out and speak to the medical professionals beforehand so they're aware of what sort of anxiety the client or patient will bring to them, so they are also better prepared to answer their questions and clear their doubts. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you so much. And if there is no more question, I would like to emphasize.
Yeah, I could
Okay.
thank you, Melba. I would ask the three last speakers the same question. I mean, we have seen different examples how cultural values can also be problematic. You know, if something is culturally seen negative, but it's still needs some treatment, and there is a cultural blockage, blocks to ask for help or to hide the necessity of help. What would you see? How we can overcome if we have cultural situations that are not favoring sustainability, social inclusion, and so on. How could we deal with that in according to your experience? Yeah, with some of you, Faree and Gaurav, and also when Imad had some talks about that. I know that you could extend a little bit, generalize your insight to different cultural context, perhaps. Maybe Saurabh, we talked about that, if I remember correctly, in a long conversation we had, how to overcome cultural difficult situation provoked by not favoring cultural values. Is Saurabh still with us?
Definitely. I would like to answer that if possible in the context of Pakistan.
Yeah.
Right. So essentially, what we've seen is really the grassroots efforts that bring about that change in perception in a culture where mental health is so stigmatized or social inclusion is so stigmatized. So, it's our responsibility as, let's say, being in a position of privilege, of being educated, to work on funding awareness campaigns, grassroots campaigns, going into schools, going into hospitals, collaborating with them, offering them free services so that we are able to reach as much as the general population as possible. This is what has worked for us. Investing in awareness first in different pockets of society has really worked, because we've also worked with a school that is located in the slums of Karachi, which is a very, which is an area which is famous for its gang wars and terrorists and things like that. But working and collaborating with the schools in those areas have empowered the parents of those children and the children themselves to be more aware of mental health, social inclusion, disability inclusion. We held a campaign where we trained mothers to be barefoot counselors, so community leaders and community support advocates, not necessarily trained as psychologists, but people that others knew to go to if they needed any help or support. We kind of adjusted the titles, let's say, or the work to reflect on what our society finds acceptable. So rather than saying, oh, this is a mental health professional, we said this is a community elder or someone who's there to support you. So you can just go and speak to them about your problems. not using that clinical language until and unless there's more awareness on that basis. So I think those grassroots efforts and working and making an effort to collaborate with such organizations brings about a small change, but a change nevertheless.
Okay. Surai, maybe your insight into that problematic?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
No, Surai, the Mimiat, from Mimiat.
Suraj. Suraj.
Suraj,
Kumar.
okay. Yeah, okay. Is he still with us?
Oh, I couldn't see him. Suraj, are you still with us, Suraj? Mimiat? I think he's disconnected already. How
And
about you, Sora? Do you have something to share about Benno's question? Okay. Benno, I would like to say something about your question.
yes, go ahead,
If-
please.
If you can still remember the very first time we talked, while we were talking about the Vienna Declaration, I also told you about my advocacy on culture engineering because, there is some way in which culture is being transformed, but it is more evident right now in terms of marketing and business. So in order to gain clients and customers, they started with culture engineering. They started to develop a culture of patronage to their products. And so if we can do this in terms of as a way of towards a particular goal, which is sustainability, or maybe in terms of creating a support system from the community and family by way of engineering or architecting the culture of people to appreciate, and then later it will be popularized and it will become part of the culture of the community. So that is one way that I am suggesting.
Okay. Okay. We have a question from Martin.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for the interesting talks. And I also would like to share some thoughts I had because sustainability and health are both about changing habits. And we all know that in Western culture, we cultivate some habits which are very difficult to change, and I'm really interested in your experiences of what do you think, like, for example, that health education can be a supporter for sustainable, for creating a sustainable habit or for creating a habitualization of sustainability, and vice versa. So I'm really interested on your experience, like the long-lasting effects of health education, also in case of sustainability, and also in the effects of sustainability education, for example, for creating a lasting health in community, for example, or within families or so. So I'm really interested in what do you think, like, if there are mutual contribution to each other. Yes.
Okay. So thank you so much. And those are the insights that we had developed out of this sharing from our three speakers. And to synthesize, I would like to share this few takeaways that I had. Of course, our first speaker, Saurabh, mentioned about walking the talk. Right. And it's starting from home. That means you consider your home
Recording stopped.
as your own, as your home planet, your small planet. And then, of course, mindfulness. So we had experienced such some form of exercise wherein we practice mindfulness. And then, of course, with Suraj and Fariha, they spoke about support system. Support system for Fariha, it's all about the community. It's a social support system. The family, the community are being engaged and involved in this support system that try to help particular mental problems and mental patients. And so for Suraj, it is the digital support system, making use of technology, wherein we don't feel being alone because we know that there is a support system that we can always rely to, even if we are alone. And for that, I appreciate and we would like to thank all the three speakers in the second session. And I would like to thank you myself. I am Melba. Thank you.